Hey everyone, this is Sterling Koza coming at you from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. Today in this podcast we're talking about improvising using tritone substitutions. Hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. Today we're talking about improvising using tritone substitutions. Now you may hear some of your favorite players using tritone substitutions in their improvising, and today we're going to go over some concrete ways of getting them into your own lines. Tritone subs are a great way to get more color into your playing and find some tonalities that you might not otherwise access. Now some of you may be wondering, what exactly is a tritone substitution and how do I create them for myself? Now I'll refer you back to podcast number 39, which offers a more in-depth explanation of tritone subs and how they're made and how they're used. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Let's get a quick review for our tritone substitutions with the 2-5-1 progression, which is the most common context in which you'll find them. So we're starting with our 2-chord D minor. And notice here I'm going with a D minor 9 as opposed to a normal D minor 7. The reason being because when we get up into the 9ths and 11ths, that's where more of the upper extensions lay, and that's what's going to really give us that color. So our normal 2-5 looks like this: D minor 9, G13, C major 9. Now for our tritone sub, all we're going to do is change our G13 to a D flat 13. So what I did there was move the root from G to D flat, a tritone away, hence the name, and changed our quality from 13 to a flat 13 and a sharp 9. So notice the difference here, G13 and G flat 13 sharp 9, also known as G altered. And with the D flat on the bottom, it sounds like this. So it's interesting how those two chords share all the same notes, but with the different root, have a totally different sound. So our new tritone sub 2-5 will look like this: D minor 9, D flat 13, C major 9. And that's what's really going to give us that tritone sub sound when we go to improvise. So next, let's kind of get familiar with these keys. Let's kind of explore on the keyboard. If you're following along at home, just kind of lay down that D minor shape and just explore that scale. We're going with the C major scale, familiar here. And next we'll move to the D flat chord. Now I'm going with a flat melodic minor scale here. So just get that sound under your hands and in your ears. And then that takes us back to C. So all together, we're kind of going between our D minor sound, our D flat 13 sound, and then back to C. So there's the framework for what we'll be working with. Now we've devised a series of sequential phrases that start small and move into longer lines. And you can find these on the practice materials at jazzpianoschool.com/podcast 131. So we're starting with tendency tones moving in that 2-5-1. And in the key of C, our tendency tones are going to be going from F to E. So we'll start with a short phrase that outlines that tendency tone. And it sounds like this. So notice how we're resolving to E, going from F to E, and this phrase outlines it. Now another tendency tone in this progression goes from A flat to G, resolving on the C major chord. Here's another phrase going from A flat to G. So again, we're going from our D flat chord, resolving to C major. Now these resolutions will give more of a direction to your playing and clarity, which will make your improvising more convincing. You can also approach the third, which is E, from below, and that will look like this. So to end a phrase on an E, you can come from below chromatically from D to D sharp to E. So our phrase will sound like this. So there's a lot of options we can work with. Now let's go for some longer phrases. Check this one out. Now that's something that'll come up a lot in traditional jazz language. You'll hear people like Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Sonny Clark playing phrases like this all the time. Here's a variation. Here's another option combining two of the smaller phrases, ending in a resolution on E. So we're kind of going from this D flat sound back to E from below chromatically. Now there's another technique for using these substitutions that I hear people in the Vanguard Orchestra using, specifically the baritone sax player Gary Somalian. And one thing that he'll do is play a 2-5-1 in the original key, and then immediately after, one in the tritone key. So that would be D minor, G13, A flat minor, D flat 13, C. Here's one example. So I played one phrase in the original key and then quickly moved to the tritone key. Now that's one option. As another option, you can play one phrase and then transpose it into the other key. And it might sound a little cut and pasty, but it can also be really effective in creating a narrative in your lines. Here's one way to do it. Now to keep that from sounding too cut and pasty, one thing you can do is try creating some type of rhythmic or melodic embellishment or variation. Here's one way that I might do it. And you can experiment with creating your own embellishments and variations on your lines So when you practice these phrases, try doing little variations and see what you can come up with. Now lastly, the best way to get this into your playing is trying it in different keys. So here, I'll try some of these in F. And feel free to explore and come up with your own lines. Let's try some in B flat. So as you can see, there's almost endless possibilities. So I hope this was helpful. And remember to check out the practice materials online at jazzpianoschool.com/podcast131. Happy practicing. All right, I hope you all enjoyed this week's podcast and found some of the information useful. As always, feel free to leave comments or questions down below. And don't forget to check out the practice materials online at jazzpianoschool.com/podcast131.